What you'll want to do is open the public hearing.
Yep.
Then after the public comments are done, move right down the list. We'll have to close the public hearing.
Okay.
Council comments.
Can't imagine there's things like that standing around. It's just junk left, right?
Good evening, and welcome to the November 13th Cross Lake Council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It seems like no matter how hard we try, at the end we always have some additions and a little rearranging of our agenda. So the council has received that packet, and I need a motion on the floor to approve the additions and the reordering of the agenda.
So moved.
Gary Hecox first,
I'll second it.
Dave Schrupp second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Tonight, we are having a public hearing on the proposal for issuance of the educational facility revenue notes for the Cross Lake Community School project. The first thing that is under this particular item on our agenda is public comments. And so at this time, we open that up for any comments or questions from our audience. Thank you. Then the next one is any council comments. There was a thick packet that we all went through, and so, Councilman, if you have any comments or questions?
Ready to go.
Okay. Then for the remainder of this public hearing, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Lines, our city administrator.
Okay, I guess at this point, since there were no public comments, and I got to plug myself in. Sorry about that. I guess at this point, since there were no public comments, no council comments or discussion, I would ask the council to move right down to number 7 under item B, is for the resolution approving the issuance and sale of educational facilities revenue notes, series 2017, and authorize the execution of documents relating thereto. So at this point, it'd be time for the council to make a motion, second, and vote on the resolution.
Is there a motion on the floor from the council?
Can
I'll
I-
make a motion to go ahead with the resolution as stated.
David Nevin first,
I'll second it.
David Trupp second. All those in favor of the motion?
Can I ask a question, though?
Sure.
So the benefit to the school will be what we talked about before, so everybody knows they aren't going to be charged sales tax on...
Well, let's back up a step. What the city is doing is they're issuing what's called conduit debt on the behalf of the charter school. So in this case, the charter school, or the Lake Foundation, is a nonprofit, and they've requested the city to issue building bonds, school building bonds, on their behalf. And what conduit debt is the city is acting as the conduit in this case because the city has the bonding ability and the credit rating and the capacity to issue what's called bank qualified tax exempt debt. So the bondholders, the buyers of this bond can purchase these bonds, and the interest on them will be tax exempt to them. And the advantage of that is the school district is, or the charter school and the Lake Foundation is able to tag on to the city's credit rating and bond issuing authority and issue bonds at a lower rate, a more favorable rate and affordable for their project. Okay? Any questions on that?
Okay, now we
Did that
have,
address the sales tax comment?
I thought we heard there was some discussion being nonprofit, there'd be a benefit in the sales tax for materials for the school. I could be wrong.
We're 501c3, Lake Foundation is,
okay.
so that's where that comes from, not the school, but we are.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be a different issue than the
Sure.
issuance of the
Okay.
bonds.
Okay.
The conduit debt arrangement is to issue tax exempt bonds. The city will issue those, pass those through to the foundation to build the school, and the city's not on the hook for the payment, but the project owner is responsible to make the payments on the bonds.
And the second question, is there a cost to the city for what's happening here?
No. In this case, no. A lot of times, the city will charge an issuance fee. The arrangement we've made with the bond council and the bank that's issuing the bonds is we've agreed to both use the same bond council, and so they're paying for those costs, and there's really no cost to us other than internal staff time.
Good, thank you.
Okay?
Good questions. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, now we will vote on the motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I'm going to get some money.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar, and as usual, it's very extensive. We had a couple of additions at the very end for the council to look at. I do need a motion on the floor unless there's anything that needs to be taken out by a council member to all items here listed are considered to be routine by the city council and will be acted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a citizen or councilman so requests. So I need a motion on the floor to accept the consent calendar as published.
So moved.
David Schrupp first,
I'll second.
Gary Heacock second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. The mayor's report. John Goodstead has submitted an application to be an alternate for the Economic Development Authority. And I'm very pleased with this application. He comes with a long history of working with the Brainerd Lakes Area Economic Development Commission for the past 20 years, and in fact has been associated and helped with some of our businesses already here in Cross Lake. He retired about a year ago and has now moved to Cross Lake. And so I think this will be a great addition for our team. He brings a lot of valuable experience. So if I could have a motion on the floor to accept the application for John Goodstead as EDA alternate.
So moved.
Gary Heacock's first,
I'll second that.
David Trupp second. All those, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now, for the exciting part of our meeting tonight, the League of Minnesota, a couple months ago, had a contest for elementary school children called If I Were a Mayor for a Day. And so we asked the charter school if anybody in their school would be interested. And yes, they would. And so we have actually about 13 essays that will be read over the next 3 months. And tonight, we have 4 of those future leaders here at our council meeting. And so the first one to talk about to read his essay on If I Were a Mayor for a Day is Noah. And so where is Noah? And here comes Noah. And Brad, maybe you can come up to that podium, and Brad, maybe you can help him adjust the speaker so that everybody can hear him. Did you get it down low enough? And so Noah, tell us your full name
Noah Paulson.
and how old are you? What grade are you in?
I'm in 5th grade.
And what city are you from?
Outing, Minnesota.
Outing, Minnesota. Okay, you go ahead and read your essay.
If I were mayor for a day, I would go to parks and playgrounds and plant new trees. I would design an animal shelter for puppies and kittens and horses. I would design a senior citizens home for people who need a place to live. I would put filters and water drinking stations for everyone to use. I would do a food and water drive for needy families. I would put up a warning sign and light and a no passing zone by school areas so kids can cross the road safely. I would make a library that's open every day of the week so people can get books and movies whenever they want. When it's winter, I would make sure the roads are clear of snow so school buses have a safe place to drive. That's what I would do if I were mayor for a day.
Thank you. Okay, now you can go and have your seat again, and the next one we'll call up is Brooke. And Brooke, state your full name.
Brooke Gibbon,
Brooke Given, and what grade are you in?
5th grade.
5th grade, and what city are you from?
Merrifield.
Merrifield. Okay, Brooke, let's hear your essay.
If I were mayor for a day, I would say no to a few things, like the lake dock places. I think they should have bigger parking spaces for boat and car so you don't have to detach the boat and trailer. I also think they should stop cutting down trees to make general stores, because we had a community meeting a year ago, and people specifically said we don't want a general store. And 1 year later, we have a general store on a historical site. I also think that we should lower the rent at Cross Lake Town Square so businesses don't have to leave. I do not like the fact that Nisswa has a freeway, so I don't think that we should not get any of these like that. People come up here to get away from the city, not to another. They like our small town and what we have. That's why we should not change anything in the future. This was fun telling you what I think about Cross Lake. Hope you have a good day.
Oh, thank you, Brooke. And our third one tonight is Isabella. And where is Isabella? And Isabella, state your full name.
Isabella Hansen,
And what grade are you in?
6th grade.
6th. And what city are you from?
Crosby, Minnesota.
Thank you. Okay, you may read your essay.
If I were mayor for a day, I could help people with their problems and make everything in order. I can probably help orphans, run libraries, clean parks and playgrounds, help the city governments, and design safe streets and buildings. If people want jobs, I can ask them what kinds of skills do they have and put them with the matching job. This was my dream since I was 5 years old to 8 years old, but unfortunately, I'm already 12 years old, or 13 years old, I meant. I could help people that might move in their new hotel houses and jobs. Probably I can remind the people the law, and if anyone steals and someone calls me about it, I can help find out the license plate and call the police and tell them what they stole. That's what I do if I were mayor for a day.
Thank you. And then our last student tonight is Wyatt. And Wyatt, you may come up. And your full name, Wyatt?
Is Wyatt Brown,
And what grade are you in?
5th,
5th. And what city do you live in?
Pequot Lakes, Minnesota.
Pequot Lakes, Minnesota. Okay, Wyatt, let's hear your essay.
Hi, my name is Wyatt. If I were mayor for one day, this is what I would do. First, I would make sure there is no littering in our beautiful town of Cross Lake, and then make sure Cross Lake Community School has no bullies at all. I would make sure that I listened to what people had to say, something to say. I would make sure, I believe that everybody should get a chance to say their ideas to make our town better. And I would make a big fundraiser to make our new school and help people in Cross Lake that need help.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, if you'll excuse me for a minute, I'm going to call all these four lovely children back up to the podium. First of all, I do think we have a position for you in our City Hall, and there are certainly commissions that each one of you could fit into. And so I see these as the future of Cross Lake and the surrounding area. This is just a little token of our appreciation for all the hard work that you did. First of all, we have a certificate that is adopting you as a friend of the city. Welcome. And then we have a gift certificate from Wyatt, Isabella, Brooke. We have a gift certificate from Gary Queen. And the best part of it all is a photo op with the mayor. Okay.
All right, now look over here. Thank you.
This was a really fun project, and some of these essays have been entered into the contest at League of Minnesota, and Rhonda Veit is their teacher. So thank you, Rhonda. When we talked about moving the agenda around a little bit, I moved up public forum. We have a resolution that will be read tonight, and I know we have some people who would like to make some comments before the resolution is read. And this resolution is simply the supporting the rerouting of Line 3. We are asking 2 to 4 speakers, if there are that many, and the limit is 3 minutes. And at the end of 3 minutes, Mr. Linus has a hook, and so he will yank you off of the speaker. But we have a big agenda tonight, but this is important. And so are there any public comments from our audience? Please come up to the podium and state your, we have 2 of them, right? Okay, stand in line, stand in line, state your name.
Aaron Herzog, Tall
Yeah.
Timbers Trail, Cross Lake.
Thank you.
I'm in support of the pipeline. I worked for the company many years ago that designed the Alaskan pipeline and built all the pump stations and terminals. Those pipelines are only good for so many years, and you need to replace them in a timely manner to avoid spills. And I think they are far, far superior method to what is going on today with the oil cars rolling down the road, all the oil tankers. So I am very strongly in favor of the pipeline going through, and I would hope that you either stay very neutral in this as a commission, or you support the pipeline, one of the two. Okay, and I'll stop right there.
Thank you. Name and where your address, please.
John Andrews, 11316 Manhattan Point Boulevard, Cross Lake. I do not think it's a good idea to route a tar sands pipeline through the Pine River watershed. This is an area where most residents get their water from wells, and tourism is a major source of income. My background, my wife's family has had a cabin up here since the 40s. I actually worked for the state of Minnesota Department of Health back in the 70s. I've worked for Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, and University of Cincinnati. I was on the federal disaster team that took care of some of the people after the BP oil spill in 2010 from Deep Horizon. Tar sands must be transported, and by pipeline, they have to be diluted. The diluted tar sands are transported by the dilution known as dilbit. And although specific materials in the dilbit are proprietary, most formulations are thought to include natural gas liquid condensate, volatile hydrocarbons such as benzene, toluene, N-hexane, ethylbenzene, and xylene. Benzene and polyaromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, are also known to cause cancer. While all crude oil spills are potentially dangerous, low flash point and high vapor pressure of the natural gas liquid condensate used to dilute the dilbit increase the risk of leaked material exploding. One of the potential toxic products of a dilbit explosion is hydrogen sulfide, which can cause suffocation, concentrations over 100 parts per million, and is identified by the producers as a potential hazard associated with dilbit spill. Enbridge identified hydrogen sulfide as a potential risk to its field personnel after the cleanup of the Kalamazoo River spill. After the Kalamazoo River spill, the Michigan State Department of Public Health determined that there are 320 people who suffered adverse health effects, including cardiovascular, dermal, gastrointestinal, neurological, ocular, renal, and respiratory effects. Following the Arkansas spill, residents living close to the spill reported increased headaches, nausea, respiratory problems. If any of us could guarantee that no material would escape from the Enbridge 3 replacement, then the health burden to the Pine River watershed would be minimal. But we know that pipeline spills cannot be prevented. Enbridge's pipeline systems have averaged 1.4 spills per week, consisting of 201 barrels or 8,440 gallons per spill. 70% of people in Minnesota obtain their drinking water from private or public wells. If wells in Cross Lake or other parts of the Pine River watershed were to become contaminated with PAHs or volatile hydrocarbons, the water would become undrinkable and would end the current lifestyle that is available to us in Cross Lake. It would also have a major economic impact on Cross Lake and the Pine River watershed due to decreased taxes from the decreased land values and decreased tourism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Name and address, please.
Dave Fisher, Cross Lake, Minnesota. Okay. The Whitefish chain is the prime reason Cross Lake exists as the community we live in. Unfortunately, the proposed Enbridge 3 route is a direct threat to the chain and also therefore the city of Cross Lake. One particular activity that would be adversely affected by contamination during construction or subsequent oil spill would be the negative impact on fishing in the Whitefish chain. The proposed Line 3 route would cross both the north and west branches of the Pine River. You're all aware that there is a walleye stripping station that is at the entrance of the Pine River where it comes into the upper Whitefish. This location provides all the eggs used by the Brainerd hatchery to stock 25 to 70 million fry and fingerlings in numerous central Minnesota lakes. Imagine what any mishap during construction or subsequent oil spill would cause to the walleye fishery, not only in the Whitefish chain, but all of central Minnesota. I spent much of my professional career in logistics and agree the best transportation mode to move high-volume liquids over land is via pipeline. In fact, where I used to live in Belgium, they've recently built a pipeline to move beer between the bottling, from the brewery to the bottling plant. And so obviously pipelines work pretty well. However, in this case, moving oil via this route that they propose that has never had a pipeline before is simply the wrong location when better routes are available. The resolution tonight does not oppose pipelines. The resolution opposes the route, and that basically is what my concern is. Pipelines, fine, but not the route that they've picked for this particular line. Therefore, for the health and future of Cross Lake, I encourage you to support the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
How we doing? Richard Idy, 38083, County Road 66, Cross Lake. I'm just going to read off the letter that I had sent in. Anybody else, anybody that was at the Enbridge hearing got to hear me fumble and bumble my way through that, so. As a citizen and business owner in the city of Cross Lake, I would like to say that the pipeline passing by so closely to our town and the Whitefish chain of lakes gives me great concern. Let me state that I understand the need for oil. I drive a pickup truck that can't move without oil. My favorite thing to do on the lakes here is cruise around in our boat, again, burning gas. I don't even own a rake because it's easier to fire up the backpack blower and clean off the yard. I'd just like to say the crude oil needed to make these products I'd like to see the crude oil needed to make these products transported in the most responsible way possible. We have all spilt a drop of oil on the garage floor, grab a rag, wipe it up, problem solved. Do the same thing on the water and that little drop of oil spreads so fast there's no way you could clean all of it up. Enbridge proposes a route that goes right across the wettest portion of the state of Minnesota. The route that has been proposed by the Friends of the Headwaters takes a much drier path. Move the pipeline to an area with more dry land, and when the spills happen, the cleanup will be possible. Here's what I don't want to see happen. I know this is a worst-case scenario, but history has a way of repeating itself. Give me a moment to tell you about the Kalamazoo oil spill. On Sunday, July 25, 2010, a 40-foot pipe segment in Line B, located approximately a half a mile downstream from the Marshall, Michigan pump station, ruptured. The ruptured Enbridge Energy pipeline caused a spill of heavy crude oil originating from Canada and into the Talmadge Creek in Calhoun County, Michigan, which flows into the Kalamazoo River. The EPA later estimated the spill to be in excess of 1 million U.S. gallons. On the 29th of July 2010, the Calhoun County Health Department asked 30 to 50 households to evacuate, and twice as many of those were advised not to drink their water. Though alarms sounded in Enbridge's Edmonton headquarters at the time of the rupture, it was 18 hours before a Michigan Utilities employee reported oil spilling, and the pipeline company learned of the spill. Meanwhile, pipeline operators had thought the alarms were possibly caused by a bubble in the pipeline, and while for some time it was shut down, they also increased pressure for periods of hours to try to clear the possible blockage, spilling more oil. The oil was contained to a 25-mile stretch of the Kalamazoo River, as several hundred workers took part in the cleanup. Regional EPA Director Susan Hedman estimated that it would take weeks to remove the bulk of the oil from the river, several months to clear the oil from the floodplains, and several more months to clean the oil out of the marsh where the spill originated. However, a year later, a 35-mile stretch of the river remained closed. Originally estimated at a $5 million cleanup, at last count, the cleanup costs were over $1.2 billion. The river was reopened to recreational use in June of 2012, closed to recreation for almost 2 years. If the Whitefish chain experiences something like this, I can't imagine the impact it would have to our town. Businesses would close, property values would plummet. I know the feds would come in to rescue us, and we'd get disaster relief from some magical bank account, but that doesn't really feel like the responsible way to do things. As the state of Minnesota, I would like to say we run this pipeline in the most responsible way possible. Please consider the alternate route as proposed by the Friends of the Headwaters. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Tom?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tom Watson, 39195 Swanberg Court. It's a Pine River mailing address, actually, but it's Swanberg. I wanted to tell you that I'm here on behalf, as president of the Whitefish Area Property Owner Association, supporting your resolution. We are going to be submitting the same resolution to the Public Utilities Commission after our board meeting on Thursday. We have taken the position that this area is a treasure in Minnesota. I would just tell you, as a result of the hearing that was held here on October 25th, we had a number of people who visited this area who, for the first time, had visited the area. Commented how beautiful it was. If you recall, it was a nice, sunny, appropriately nice, sunny fall day. And we had a number of people that had the occasion to visit the area and now see exactly the things some of us have been testifying about. There's some confusion, I think, about what this line means. I've heard some references to the fact that this is just a new line in the old corridor. The actual truth of the matter is no. The old corridor actually follows Highway 2. So the single line that you see going across from Grand Rapids, it actually goes from Bemidji, Clearbrook through Grand Rapids onto Superior is an existing line on Highway 2. There's 6 pipes in that line. 5 come from Alberta, 1 from the Bakken field. What Enbridge is proposing to do is vacate that pipe. In its place, they want to put a new line, which from Clearbrook would proceed to Park Rapids and on to Superior. Here's 2 facts that you might want to think about as you do that. Number 1, there's no pipeline in that area at the moment. Number 2, there's evidence that Enbridge has negotiated with the property owners in Park Rapids to allow an easement agreement that would allow up to 4 pipes. So in other words, the line 3 that they'd like plus 3 others. These are pipes carrying 760,000 barrels of crude oil a day. Multiply that by 42 and you get the number of gallons. Critical thing with the link from Clearbrook to Park Rapids goes on to the Twin Cities and serves Pine Bend and St. Paul Park. Critical thing up here is that serves Super America and Holiday gas stations. Pine Bend is primarily Holiday, Koch Brothers, and Northern Tier is out of St. Paul Park. It's about a 400,000 barrel refinery capacity. Then you've got 2.4 million gallons, or barrels, I should say, that would continue on from that location to Superior to serve the only refinery that serves northern Minnesota, which is a 50,000 barrel capacity pipeline in Superior. It was called Calumet Refinery. It was just sold here in the last week. And it previously was owned by Lakehead Pipeline Company, which is a pipeline company that Enbridge acquired. So bottom line is that some of us have looked at this in terms of a cost-benefit analysis or a benefit-cost analysis. There's lots of benefits to the oil company. There's not much benefit to the property owners and the businesses of this area of Minnesota. The risks attached to cost are huge. And so some of us have taken the position that there are other alternate routes. Just so you know, what Enbridge, or SAO4, is the line that Friends of Headwaters has looked at. That's an existing Enbridge corridor. It's got a natural gas pipeline in it. So they'd be putting in a new pipe, but it's not creating a new corridor. The proposed line through the Pine River watershed would be 100 miles in Minnesota. It's never had a pipeline in it, and they want a 750-foot corridor. 750-foot corridor, 375 on either side of the pipe. Very last comment, as I've said to the mayor, I was very, very proud of the city of Cross Lake for agreeing to host the Public Utilities Commission hearings on the 25th. I know the chief's in the back room, and I know that he wasn't totally thrilled with the opportunity, but I want to compliment the chief and the officers of Cross Lake handling that particular event. Did it flawlessly. Captain Scott Goddard with the Crow Wing Sheriff had a number of their officers there. John Henke, Jane, Ron, you got a great staff at the community center. They handled that so well that I do know that there are 2 nonprofits that might very well be spending sometime next year doing a planning retreat in Cross Lake, which means they'll be renting rooms, eating food. I don't know if they've got a beverage at Moonlight Bay, maybe. And probably renting the community center. And that's as a result of having visited up here on the 25th. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now close the public forum, and I will go about reading the resolution. But first, I just want to remind you, we will put a motion on the floor, a second, and then we will open it up for discussion, and then we will vote on the resolution. Resolution supporting alternative routing of Enbridge Energy's new replacement and expanded Line 3 project. Whereas an environmental impact statement was prepared for Enbridge Energy's proposal new Line 3 project for the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, the responsible government unit. And whereas the administrative law judge will be presenting her report with recommendations for a certificate of need routing permit if the certificate of need is affirmed. and future plans for the present Line 3. And whereas Enbridge Energy and its partnerships and subsidiaries have a present capacity of 2,850,000 barrels per day, including present Line 3 with the need for the present 3, Minnesota and neighboring states, refineries with a maximum design capacity totals 515,000 barrels per day. And whereas Enbridge Energy and its engineering firm, Barr Engineering, provided testimony that Enbridge pipeline oil spills along the proposed new corridor would have serious negative impacts to the natural environment for Norway Lake, Whitefish Lake, and Roosevelt Lake, and along 35 miles of the Pine River watershed. And whereas Enbridge Energy crude oil pipelines, as reported by Enbridge, have had reported oil spills of over 800 spills on its systems in an 11-year period, and about 180 barrels per spill, or about 280 barrels, or nearly 12,000 gallons per week, including a 2010 spill in Michigan of over 1 million gallons in wetlands, rivers that remain, and large spills in Bemidji, Cohasset, and Grand Rapids. And whereas Minnesota government units, businesses, and lake associations in our area commit significant annual resources to water quality, fishing, environment management, and tourism in this area, and our lakes serve as important resources for use of enormous value to all of Minnesota and neighboring states, and present economics, employment, and vitality of north central Minnesota is at stake whenever its waters are at risk and endangered. And whereas state agencies, departments of natural resources, and pollution control have raised extensive questions, thoughtfully evaluated the details, and recommended against the Enbridge proposal for the proposed route of this new expanded Line 3, and favored system alternate SA04, as you saw. And therefore, Judge O'Reilly should recommend in her report, and the PUC should determine that the proposed new expanded Line 3 poses a serious risk and threat to the natural environment in the proposed new corridor through the Pine River watershed where our community is located. And now therefore be it resolved by the Cross Lake City Council that our lake areas and natural environments provide unique, sustainable socioeconomics, provide a natural advantage that Minnesota values and supports with tax dollars, will face serious negative impacts to our natural environment from Enbridge's proposed route. As such, we object to Enbridge's preferred routing and understand alternate routes are available. So with that, if we can have a motion on the floor to approve this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
First by Dave Schrupp. Is there a second? And I will second just to get the discussion going. So, Councilman, any further discussions or questions
Who is
or
the
comments?
permitting authority that gives the final okay for the pipeline?
Tom, do you want to step up here and answer that question? And ask your question again, will you, Dave, so everybody can hear
Who
it?
is the permitting authority that gives the final go-ahead for the pipeline?
There are two decisions they will make. The final authority is the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. Consists of 5 people appointed by the governor. And there would be 2 decisions. One is a certificate of need, which is to demonstrate the taxpayers, the public of Minnesota and the neighboring states need the product in this area. And the second would be a routing permit.
And does it look like they're going to go ahead and give that permit? I mean, it doesn't make any sense the way that it looks like it's drawn out to me, but
Well, let me give you the 2 sets of facts that are sitting out there. The Minnesota Department of Commerce is the staff to the Public Utilities Commission for this purpose. And they have, they hired two organizations, outside organizations, to do review on behalf of the taxpayers of Minnesota, and they came out with a report in early September indicating that, one, there wasn't the need for additional 760,000 barrels of crude oil to Minnesota people and the neighboring states, and number two, objected to the route. But if the certificate of need weren't granted, the routing question goes away.
Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the Enbridge thing at the community center. I wished I had of.
Do you want to talk, the purpose of this is to submit this to,
Yes.
what's her name, Ann? Or-
Her name is Ann O'Reilly. Do you know
So-
Ann's in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it with an E or, no?
No, it's not. Judge O'Reilly is with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and they handle all of the hearings on all utility cases, whether it's electric utility or gas or natural gas, crude oil, whatever. She will make a report, having sorted through all the testimony that's been had. There were 16 hearings in 8 locations, so we had 8 hours here in Cross Lake. And she used every minute of those 8 hours, 4 in the afternoon, 4 in the evening.
When is that report due? Is there a deadline on it?
Her report it doesn't have a hard deadline. She is anticipating submitting that report in late January, early February, and the Public Utilities Commission has it on its schedule to make a decision in April of 2018. But the critical thing that Councilmember Schrupp is talking about, the public comment period ends on November 22nd at 4:30. I think that's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. In other words, they've had 3 opportunities for the public to speak. They've done these hearings that I mentioned around the state, the one that was here. They had an earlier comment period on the adequacy of the environmental impact statement, and now the last comment period is this November 22nd. Right now, they're in the middle of evidentiary hearings, looking at all the evidence and the testimony and cross-examining all the parties, and that's a 15-day process that is targeted.
Was there a kind of a survey performed by all of the speakers that gave you some indication how our community felt?
No, they didn't do a survey. The only surveys we had were 2 written by 2 people in this right front table that in their respective newspapers, I think Bill and Paul had, at least in the Northland Press, I remember, indicating that somebody had tabbed the number of people that spoke for and against, and I think the number was probably about 3 out of 4 were opposed, or 2 out of 3, or something of that sort. And most of the people that spoke in favor were bussed in here by Enbridge, either as subcontractors, employees, or employees of contractors.
As you say that, Tom, I'm kind of blindsided by this tonight at this meeting. I believe that you've been thinking about this for quite some time. I don't think this came up in the last couple days, right?
Right. I think it came about the middle of the last
I don't know
week.
why this couldn't have been posted in the regular agenda so that all the public could have seen it and anybody could have come. It was
Yes.
done at the last minute, which I don't appreciate at all.
Yes, thank you. I can appreciate that. We worked a little bit with the resolution to make it as,
No, but as Tom just stated, they bust in these people in support of. Well, I kind of feel like this is kind of the opposite happening right here.
okay, thank you.
I'm not real comfortable with speaking for the entire community of Cross Lake and making a statement like that. There's nobody more concerned about a spill than I am. I gotta believe that the MPCA, or whoever the governing authority is going to do this. And I kind of believe that people individually could send a message to that person and get it. Myself, I'm uncomfortable voting for the entire city of Cross Lake,
Okay,
You do this all the time.
and I'm doing it once again.
We do this with everybody that walks into the planning and zoning group. And you see them when
Explain that.
you're business.
Explain that a little bit.
Because somebody wants to come in and they want to build a house, brand new house. And they ask you, they say, can I build it 50 feet from the lake? And you have to tell them, no. We want to have your house at least 75 feet from the lake.
right?
And you know why we do that? To protect the water. Our opinion here is no different than what we're telling our
Well,
possible
my
future
opinion and your
people here at
opinion
the same
are
time.
two different, I mean, we can
That-
agree on
In
that.
my world,
but-
this is my opinion, it's the same thing. This costs us nothing to reflect our opinion, and why would we take on the risk of not telling them that we don't want this? I mean, people
I don't
could,
know why
if
we
this
can't. I
pipeline
think
goes
we've done
through...
that. I think we've done that in a
This
lot
is
of
a
ways.
this is a formal presentation. If this pipeline goes through, and let's just say people find out, and there's people that are opposed or scared that the pollution's going to come, which I believe it could very well happen, it's happened all over the place. What happens if they decide, well, I'm not going to invest my money in building a home or a new lake home in this area? Pretty soon, nobody's going to be coming here,
Well,
and
Dave, but there's another side to that, too, is if there is a need for it, and they've got to get it through, it's going to go through someplace.
we don't get our fuel from this stuff.
Okay, but it's coming from Alberta or Edmonton.
I know,
or- and
there
it's coming-
is a need, but
There is a need, and
there's an
and we might
alternate
be a
route,
corridor that
there's
it
an
comes through.
alternate route that's been discussed,
Well, I
and,
can't imagine that it wouldn't go there then. I can't imagine why they would grant it.
well then, I mean, do you want it to go in, if you had an alternate route that goes way around us on dry land?
If I had to make my decision,
Right.
I'd say dig up the old line and put it back in the same place. That's
well,
the
then I
only
guess
thing that
there's-
makes sense to
Right,
me.
there's issues there with the people that currently have it, they don't want it either. I just think it costs
I'm
us nothing to
uncomfortable-
avoid having it go where they're
I'm
planning it,
uncomfortable
so.
speaking for the whole city of Cross Lake in voicing my personal opinion on it. That's all I'm
You're
saying.
just, I mean, in my world, it's an easy protection for all of the people that live here right now and down the road. Why take on the risk?
I just have, I don't know that this is the right way to do it. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is the first I've heard
No,
of it.
right.
This has kind of blindsided me, so which,
I think they've been at the meetings before it, or council meetings to talk about
I've heard about the
this, so,
pipeline
yeah.
before, yeah, absolutely.
And
But
I think
didn't
I
know
think
this
it was
coming up
mentioned
tonight.
at the last council meeting when Tom Watson spoke on, gave us an update on where it was. One of the comments that I say in my house is that the whitefish chain can live without Cross Lake, but Cross Lake cannot live without the whitefish chain. And so I look at it from a socio perspective, a tourism perspective, an economic perspective. And so for myself, I feel like I'm protecting our natural environment and our chain of lakes, which we have heard over and over and over again, that is one of the top priorities of our citizens, protection of our lakes. So, I mean, so that's my
If I
personal
was
opinion.
100% comfortable that I was hearing a fair and balanced report of what is coming up, and I was asked to do that, I'd probably be more willing to. We're hearing one side of it. There's another side of it that I haven't heard, unfortunately. And now I'm being asked to make a decision for a lot of people. I just,
Okay, yeah.
on short notice, I'm against
We
that.
respect that. So,
The other side of it is, we don't want it in our backyard, but somebody else is going to get it. Where the old pipeline goes, that crosses the Mississippi, goes up by Leech Lake, goes up by Winnebagash, all those areas. And I don't know why they can't use the same line. You also got rail cars spilling oil all the time and creating problems. So,
I think we got to believe in our governing body who permits this kind of stuff and allows it to happen, and influence them and call them and do whatever you do to lobby that kind of stuff.
This is how you do it. This is how you tell them. And in my world, we're not opposing the need. That's not written any place in this document. It's just, if you're going to need this pipeline, please don't run it where you're planning on running, because it's going to be, I think I heard 5 or 6 miles north of County Road 1. And every bit of water in the state and in the area runs from up there, comes down our way, and eventually ends up in the Mississippi watershed. So, you know, if the water gets polluted, everybody's well's going to be shot here. And why would we take on that risk?
Well,
Tell them, hey, it's
I
a
don't
not,
disagree
tell
with
them,
that, but
they don't live here, just tell them it's not a smart move to allow that thing to
caught
go
a
where it
little
is.
wind of some kind of conversation about this at the meeting tonight about 16 hours ago.
Right.
And in that time, I've had a couple conversations, well, many conversations with different people, asking what their opinion is. One was Richard, and he gave me his, and I heard it, and I appreciate it. A lot of them told me that it's not the position of this council to do that. And, I mean, I got to listen to that. So, being the short
Fair enough.
notice
Fair enough.
that I've had to,
So we will take a vote on it, and then you can vote, you're going to vote in your best, what you think is the best
I will.
decision. Are there any other questions or comments? Gary?
I made my comments.
Okay.
I think pipelines are the safest way to transport it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's arguing, that point, so, good point.
And
Dave, any final comments?
No,
Okay.
I don't really understand where the city takes this stance. It should have been up, I mean, it's up to the residents, and the residents have already spoke their piece. And I'm kind of going along with Dave.
some of you have had more engagement in this than others have, unfortunately, because
But it gets to be not in my backyard. That's what it gets to be.
that's all we're saying.
Yep.
That's exactly, it's no issue against the line.
Right.
It just makes no sense to not let somebody know our opinion that, from everything we've heard and from the experts, if the spill happens, which they do, it could ruin stuff in Cross Lake and surrounding communities.
Any other final comments before we move on? Okay, we're going to do an individual roll call. Dave Schrupp? Oh, you want to do, okay.
Dave Sharp,
Um,
in favor of the resolution.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Gary,
No.
Patty,
Yes.
Dave,
no.
chaos.
Okay. Well, thank you for your timely comments, and thank you, audience, for your participation, and also your comments. And we live in a beautiful part of Minnesota, and we want to keep it that way for generations to come. So thank you.
If there was something I could add to that, Ms. Mayor, is that when these issues come up, I wish that they could be on a timely thing on the agenda and not held until the end.
Yes.
It seems to happen occasionally on issues like this, and I just don't think it's fair to the community.
Okay, good point. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We will now go to the city administrator's report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. If I could enlist Brad's help and to put item G1A on the overhead, and while he's doing that, this is a proposal from David Drown to issue the bonds we spoke of, we've been talking about for the last few months regarding the financing of the sewer plan. I did speak with David Drown this afternoon, and he wanted me to extend his regrets for not being able to come here tonight. He had a minor accident this weekend where he got slapped in the face with a branch while hunting, and if any of you have ever scratched your eyeballs, you know how comfortable that can be. It kind of feels like you have 40 grit sandpaper on your eyelids, and he asked if he said his wife would drive him up here so he could speak, but I said, we've been talking about this for months, so we'll just go ahead and take care of it. So what you have on the screen right now is a letter to the council, and it's regarding the $1,015,000 geodisposal system bond series 2017A for the wastewater treatment improvements. And just to refresh everybody, the estimated cost of the improvements were about $2.5 million. The $1.5 million was intended to be financed with cash from the proceeds of the sale of the phone company, and the remaining balance is to be paid for in cash through this proposed bond. And the interesting thing about this bond is, in terms of issuing bonds, a $1 million bond is relatively small. So when you're issuing debt, typically you'd go out and you get a bond rating. You'd pay somebody to do that for you, and you'd go through a much lengthier, more costly process. What Mr. Drown and his company is suggesting is that we do something similar with the private placement, where, if you remember, when we issued certificates for the fire truck here a few years ago, we did a similar process. We issued GO certificates, meaning the taxing and full credit authority of the city is behind it, so it's paid by the taxpayers. And we placed a $561,000 debt with a small bank in Pine City. So what Mr. Drown did is he had contacted, it looks like 4 different entities, and said, we're looking at issuing $1 million of debt to finance the sewer plant. What can you do for me? Can you give me a rate? And in this case, he received 4 proposals, the best one coming from North American Banking Company at a net interest rate of 1.9356%, which is really good. This rate compares well with the interest rates for AA-rated bonds sold competitively at the time that this was priced. So David Drown's recommendation is that we go ahead and accept this proposal from North American Banking Company to issue the bonds. If you could flip to the next page on there, Brad. There's and I really only need to see the left-hand side of that, because I know it's probably not going to fit up there. Let's go with the other left. There we go. This is the use of the funds for that, and what we're projecting right now is there's no placement fee for this type of bond. Typically, you'd have at least the 1% placement fee to issue this type of debt. The other thing is the issuance costs are quite small, of which a large portion of it is being paid by NJPA. So we're able to get reimbursed for half of our issuance fees. Also in this case, the way this one is set up is you've heard in the past where you've called bonds early to get better interest rate. This one does not have a call provision in it, so if we change our mind, we can pay it off with no penalty. So if you get to, a year down the line or next year or whatever, and you say, you know what, we don't like the debt anymore, we want to pay it off in cash, you can do that. You have that option. The other thing we did with this one, which is a little different than what we've done in the past, is we're proposing to set up an agreement with the bank so that they will notify us in advance of the debt payment, and we'll make an automatic transfer from our bank account to pay the principal and interest. Normally with the bond, what you would do is you would hire a third-party registrar called a paying agent, and you'd pay them roughly $500-600 a month or more to pay that bond, to manage that payment for you. We're proposing to do it ourselves.
Mike,
Here.
wasn't the bond supposed to be for $1.5 million?
No.
This
Yeah,
is...
the other way, yeah.
No, we looked at $1.5 million
That's right, I'm sorry, that
Cash.
was the other way around.
for cash and $1 million to pay for the
Yeah.
remainder to get the 2.5. The other thing in here is if you look to the right-hand side of, just hang on, Brad, of the left-hand side of that, where it says on the bottom, where it says payment schedule and cash flow, we've already provided in our proposed levy right now for that payment. So the payment you've already been provided is consistent with the schedule. So we guessed pretty good at the time. So I'm going to go with David Drown's recommendation that, provided you still want to do this, this is what it would look like. And we would go ahead and approve the resolution to provide the issuance and sale of a $1,015,000 general obligation disposal system bond series 2017A and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
I'll make
As-
that motion.
Okay. Gary Hecox first. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Dave Schrupp, third. Any, second. Dave Schrupp, second. I said third. Any discussion? And this, too, was one of those later additions, and so, Dave, if you have any, questions, don't, please ask.
Yep, no, this has been coming down the pipeline for a while, so
Yeah.
it's expected.
Yep.
I do have one additional comment. With this one, for this year, Ted and his group is projecting we'll spend between $900,000 and maybe just a little over $1 million on the project yet by the close of this year. So this will fit nicely with disposing those funds.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second item I have on, under my report is, there's a memo from the city clerk, and I'll just quickly read it. It says, effective July 1st, 2017, state statutes changed to allow establishments holding an off-sale liquor license to sell liquor on Sundays. Even though we are governed by state statute in this matter, we would like to keep our ordinances in compliance with the state of Minnesota. Attached is an ordinance allowing off-sale liquor to be sold on Sundays. So Brad, if you could put up that second page of that. You remember the state law change where you can buy alcohol on Sundays? What we're requesting is that we change the ordinance to say the same thing as the state statute.
I'll make that motion.
Gary Hecox first. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dave Nevin second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, the third item I have on there is a memo from me and regarding salary adjustment recommendations for 2018. And before I get into the memo, I just want to give you a little background on this. The composition of the Personnel Committee is made up of myself, Mr. Schrupp, and Patty, and John Hankey. So if you're a department head, which John and I both are, it's kind of hard to come and say, to come to the Personnel Committee and say, you know what, I'm going to vote as a sitting member of the Personnel Committee and vote on something that directly impacts my own personal interest. And so for that reason, I pulled the committee for a consensus, because we couldn't have a majority vote, because two of us are employees. Now, this does not address any union items, because remember, the unions are settled through the end of 2018. Throughout the budgeting process, we've been talking about a 3% salary adjustment for non-union department heads, which has been consistent with our talks going back to late July, early August. So we've had a number of meetings on this, so what I'm presenting is not new information to the council. So for the non-union department heads, my recommendation, based on, 4 previous budget workshop meetings along with discussions in the Personnel Committee, but not a recommendation from the Personnel Committee, is that the council approve non-union department head salary adjustment of 3% for 2018.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to, since I was on the commission, I'd like to spend some time. Can I clarify a motion that would cover several topics?
Absolutely.
Dave, go ahead.
And we've talked about this, and the motion that I would consider is relative to the 3% reads as follows, so that you get the drift of this, to allow the total of all current salaries to increase on average of 3% from 2016 to 2017. This does not mean that all employees will receive an automatic, across-the-board 3% salary increase. We did talk about that. I further want to go on to say that reviews will be completed in February 2018, at which time the reviews and suggested increases completed by the city administrator will be reviewed and approved by the Personnel Committee. The revised Springstead compensation study and compensation plan will be utilized as needed during this process, such that all reviews will be objective and consistent. Once the Personnel Committee review is completed, the administrator will conduct the individual reviews with all employees. This process will be used moving forward in future years. The completion of reviews by 2018 assumes a fully approved compensation plan will be in place no later than 60 days from now. This is the Springstead study that we got to get done. We have to use that plan. If the plan is not approved, which is the compensation study, the reviews will be delayed until such time the plan is in place, and that's the end of my motion. That was a motion. I can give you a copy of this. The reason I say that is that being,
We didn't vote on the first one.
no,
We
that
didn't
they
vote on
allowed
the
me
first
to enhance it. I wanted to get some
Okay.
clarification in this so that all
Around
employees
it.
know what's going on. Because I asked an email from Char, and she says, we don't have a compensation plan right now. So I'm trying to put some time frames into it and what's going to happen and who's going to do this, so. And part of this is because this Springstead study, and I can go on, and I plan to talk about that a little more, and I'm thinking Mike is going to talk about it too, is that we need to kind of summarize and get this plan done. After we had our personnel meeting last week, the following day, Mike and I had a call with Ann from Springstead, and, because we had questions. We wanted to learn how it was operated so we could work the system ourselves. And she says, I've been waiting since August for a response on our plan. So we have to get back to her on questions that we have. And then as far as training, she said, once we get your responses back and we understand, we will come over and we will explain to you how you rank employees, how you have a system, et cetera. And a little later on, I'll talk about the need that I think the Personnel Committee needs to go through this training. And I'd also like to have all the members of the City Council understand how that's done. Otherwise, you aren't going to know how this whole process works, so.
What is the timeline for waiting to February to do that? Because the study will be complete by then?
Well, I'm putting that date on there because that drives the completion of getting this thing done. It can't go on forever. It's got to get done because January and February is the time that they do reviews for employees every year, right?
Sure, if I may.
Can I just say one?
Yeah.
And the third thing is there's government regulations that call as equity pay acts, and you have to have some system that you use for all employees, and they give points to jobs, you write job descriptions, they're evaluated. You cannot willy-nilly just go ahead and decide so-and-so is going to get this without having some good, solid justification and a good plan to follow.
And we don't have that now
Nope, we don't
in
have that
place.
right now, from what I've been told, so. So we need that plan. And we've spent about $8,500 asking them from September of '16 to get this done. So it needs to get done.
Mike?
So
you
if I
have
could
something to
address
add?
just a couple things with that. I'll address pay equity first. We do have a pay equity plan in place, and it is in compliance with the state rating system right now. And what we're talking about with the Springstead study is right now, every staff is assigned a responsibility number with the pay equity system. And every 3 years, you have to show that you're in compliant with that system, meaning different genders with the same role have to be paid the same amount for the same type of work and so forth. And so there's a number of different categories. That's in place and functioning, and it's been in place and functioning for a number of years on that. So I just wanted to clarify that. With respect to the study from Springstead, that was a process where a proposal came out in August of 2016, going into the fall and into the early spring of 2017. There were a number of back and forths with Springstead, trying to clarify information, and it took a long time to get responses back and digest it and go back and forth. And so with the salary schedule that Springstead is using, they've developed their own proprietary information, which is called the SAFE or SAFE system, where job duties are analyzed, and the rating system is established that's in compliance. It's recognized by Pay Equity as a compliant system. So while we have one system in place, it's under a different method. There is another method, and the idea was to put a salary schedule in place and to see where people fit into that salary schedule based on specific survey data. And as David mentioned, we do have some questions with the survey data. Did we use too small a sample in some instances? Did we match up job duties correctly? Were staff that wear multiple hats, were those items properly considered in that rating system? And so from that big data table or sample that Springstead did, what they did is they developed a salary table for all staff, including the union people, which we know is a totally separate deal because we have two unions and they're negotiated separately. So what this study did is it put everything together to try to figure out what might make sense for us going into the future. And the way that schedule was built is it takes the average and the median and the mean and it assigns values to those based on those job duties. And so in the proposal you got back in August when Ann Antonsen from Springstead was here presenting that, the schedule she showed was a 3% per year adjustment between the schedule, between like if you're in a job position A and you go into year 2, there's a 3% adjustment all the way across until the end of the schedule. If you moved between job positions, let's say you were a police sergeant to a chief or a city clerk to a city administrator, or whatever that was, there was a 6% adjustment between job classes. It assigned values to that. So going back to the salary adjustment for non-union department heads, I'm recommending is in compliance with that schedule. And the 3% adjustment for 2017 going into 2017 fits within that broad category of each of those job classes. So, in my opinion, with all due respect to Mr. Schrupp, I don't think you need to wait until that comes out. What you could do is you could reevaluate specific positions and make other adjustments where necessary. Now, others have also shared schedules with me. What Dave is suggesting, to say an average of 3% over here instead of everybody gets 3%, that's a whole different process than what the compensation plan, the Springstead study, is suggesting. And we can talk about that if you want to.
Did you have any other comments?
Mike, when you took over the city administrator role, was there a pay change for you?
No, there was not. And we have a different opinion on what that means. And so what was done, and I'll read it to you, here's the minutes from July 10th. Motion was made by Nevin, seconded by Gary Hecox to appoint me, Mike Linus, as full-time city administrator treasurer with the performance review to completed in February 2018. To adjust wage and compensate Mr. Linus retroactively to July 10th once the Springstead job classification and compensation study is received, and to use Dan Vogt as a consultant. But I would like to talk about that as the second part of my memo, because the request my recommendation now is for the non-union staff for 2018 department heads. That's what we're discussing.
So that's what you're talking about now?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I don't see the second part on there. That's why I asked that question.
Okay. Yep, it's in the memo on G3. It's on, there's two items on there.
so that motion made back in July of 2017 did not reference, and I've got it in front of me, did not reference the non-union employees. It was just referencing you.
Then, no.
Okay.
Can we address the non-union department heads first?
Yeah.
Because I've listed
Okay,
my
I got
request
it.
as a
I
second
got it.
item.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
just
good.
recap, now what you're saying is a 3% for 2017? Or is that moving forward to 2018.
to 2018. Yep. That's consistent with what,
And in a nutshell, what you're saying, Dave, is let's wait till February and get the Springstead study.
No, not on what, not this very first one. I guess the only thing that I am trying to push for is, I'll go along with what Mike said at the 3%, but I'm trying to put some flexibility in there by saying that's an average 3% increase. And I'll leave it up to him and say, if you work for Mike and you're doing an exceptional job, Mike might say you get 4%, because you're doing it, not a 3. If everybody gets the same deal, then
What's the incentive? I mean, is that what
exactly.
you're
See,
saying?
I'm just giving him some flexibility to do that. And the other part of
How are you
all,
going to take only getting 2%, though?
I'll be fine. And the other part, I was trying to build a structure for what's going to happen so people understand. And I do think we can get this compensation plan done in time, to use it, to use the numbers to see what we need to do here, because there has been some discussion on perhaps adjusting those people that share more hats than some cities have, where a separate individual does this, but in our city, they kind of do, they wear 2 hats at the same time.
So
And-
can I go along with my original motion and just approve the 3%, and then in February, we'll address it further? I mean, can we do that? Is that,
why wouldn't we want to have a substantiated compensation plan before we issue the 3%, so that we have a process in
is
place?
it going to affect the employees for a month or a couple months by not getting it? I mean, is that a consideration?
No, it'll all be retroactive to, January 1, which is the date. But it
Okay.
just, we need to kind of
I'm a little
get,
confused by it. so I-
well, then the other discussion that we had was that I thought, what you were alluding to, we have this personnel committee, and we're getting into some discussions that, in my world, I don't think a lot of the other councilmen understand or know what's going on there.
I would
And
love
I-
to know
And
a
I
little
thought
more
we
about
should
it.
have a
Well,
separate
right.
meeting to discuss that moving ahead, so you're fully aware how we pay people and how we evaluate people.
And I think that's my
Right,
point, is
yeah.
that, by completing the Springstead study and putting
Right.
together a compensation plan in place, that exactly as you said, you understand, I understand, and Gary,
So you're going to make that retroactive to last July, then?
That's a different subject.
right, yeah,
That's different. That's next.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So the original motion that I said was pay the 3% back to July.
No, we're not on that. We're only talking about Mike's first one,
That's what I said.
but he's talking about the payment for salary increases for 2018 so he can set his budget,
Well,
right? And this has nothing to do to go back to July with the employees.
sure.
His discussion is coming.
Sure, and again, the 3% I'm looking at is consistent with the Springstead study. So what Dave is talking about is something a little bit different than that, where
it's the
he's,
future.
where we're talking, some point later. I'm just trying to get us through 2018. We're going to need some time to develop that. I think we can get the Springstead study done. The numbers I'm proposing fall within the ranges that are in the Springstead study as it sits today. Now, if we want to refine that a little more, what some entities will do is they'll have a range where if you're at the start of your career, meaning an unexperienced person, new to your position and job and just starting out, you're at the low end of the pay scale. If you're more towards the end, at the high end of the pay scale, there's a different rating system that could be used to do that. So if you're meeting the expectations of your job and you're in the middle of your career at the midpoint, you get X%. If you're at the top end of your pay scale, if meeting your job duties, you would receive a smaller percentage. But if you're at the bottom of the pay scale, you would receive a larger percentage. And so the dollars all fit into that bandwidth. That's a whole different process than what Springstead. And for that reason, there's a larger jump between different positions. It's as high as 12 or 18%. And so what the Springstead scale, as we're looking at the study right now, the things that we need to clarify is how did people get rated? Did they get credit for for their job duties, and are they being compensated fairly within that rating system? And so the way that schedule is set up for the study we're trying to complete at this point is there's a 3% adjustment between years on the pay scale for those different pay grades. So that's not, so there are different dollar amounts for each person in that chart, whatever their job grade is. And for changing job grades, let's say you went from one job grade 1 to job grade 2, there's a 6% adjustment. And that's consistent throughout all job grades. So what Dave is talking about
Yeah,
is
that's
let's put
different.
some teeth into that so there's a process to
There's
handle
a
that.
great TV show I have to be home for at 9, so I think, and
Okay.
Right.
we could talk about this all night.
Right, right.
But
So, I-
here's the goal that I have for myself and for all of the employees, excuse me, in Cross Lake. We need to have some written plan that we're looking at, that they're working with.
And we can't.
And
have
I don't
that
know
till
where that is
February
today.
or
I
something.
have not seen that, and I want to see a plan that's very clear on how we implement
You
the
want to do that
Springstead
before you
study.
go ahead and authorize the 3% for the budgeting
No,
of 2018.
let me just talk. So if we can get a commitment on when that plan can be written and when we can review it, I'm okay with letting what I said go and just, we'll authorize the 3% for next year. But I think that's important, and I think the whole council needs to be involved in how the compensation plan works. That's really all I'm trying to say. So if I don't need to
And
put
I
it in a
agree with that.
motion,
And so we,
I'll
and
say
so
it
when...
like that,
Right,
so.
and so when we put this plan together, you get a copy, I get a copy, and
Right.
we all can all look at it.
so we all know what's
what
going
we're
on.
talking
There's a
about.
process.
And, I kind of go back to the thing that, as a council, we have this fiduciary responsibility, not only to our staff, but all to our community, to maintain a compensation plan that is fair, consistent, objective, and certainly ethical. I mean, that's my overall comment on making sure that,
So who made the motion, Gary? Did you make it or did I?
I made the motion, you seconded it.
All right.
so,
Carol, tell me.
yeah, okay. Do we need to have just a little clarification or a repeat on that
Yeah,
motion?
I'm not sure if it includes Dave's enhancement or not.
No. Well, unless you wanted to.
I don't.
But I think that,
Well, I think you've got a very good, I mean, I used to do
I know you did that, so you get the deal, and...
I know
Right.
the way it should be.
It's cumbersome tonight, but for what we're talking now, as long as there's a follow-up,
Yep.
separate meeting,
Yeah.
and you give us an idea when you can get this done,
Yep.
not 2 years from now,
Okay.
I'm okay with it, all right?
Okay,
Okay, so I will second the motion as made.
okay. And are there,
Whatever.
Yeah, ignore
To
mine.
approve the 3% increase for non-union department head salaries.
Yep.
and so Gary was the first, and David was the second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay, before we get to me, I would like to have the council's consensus to direct Dave to work with me on this. He's offered, so, I'll take his help.
At 2%? We're going to stick with the
2% increase in rate?
Yeah, let's see,
raise?
2%, that's like $7 more a month, is that what it is?
I will make that a motion.
So,
They have to make a motion
And
for
I,
that?
just a consensus.
right, I certainly agree that we need to have more than,
Sure.
and just you. I mean, it's easier for you to have a
Yep.
committee working on it, too.
Yep, I just don't want you to think Dave's going off on his own and doing that.
Well, I think the whole council needs to be involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Know more about that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I used to have to do this for employees.
Well, you get all of the points, and, yeah, I don't know, yeah, all right, so.
That sounds great.
Okay, great. Now the next one is near and dear to myself, and that's me. It's a little awkward. I've never had to do this in a public setting, but we've got the Springstead study, so we're working with that. We understand what that means. And what I'm asking for is retroactive to July, a 6% adjustment from my current base back to July. And that's based on the compensation adjustments between pay scales on the preliminary Springstead survey and statewide comparable wages published by the League of Minnesota Cities. One thing I do is when I look at at something to say, what's reasonable? If I were sitting on the council, what would make me feel comfortable, and what would be reasonable to me? And to be completely honest with you, I know enough about statistics and data analysis that I can go out to the League of Minnesota Cities website and I can pick and choose cities similar or dissimilar, and we could argue which ones to use and which ones to not use. And you can make these come out to fit your need. You really can. Anyone who's worked with numbers and statistics knows that you can do that. And you can do that. And so what I'm asking for, I believe, is reasonable and fair and is consistent with the tables we're already talking about with the preliminary Springstead study.
So just so I understand you, Mike, you're asking for 6%, and is that part of your increased responsibilities?
Correct.
So that is going from treasurer, that was your title before, or?
Finance director, treasurer
Finance
to
director.
full-time city administrator.
Why are you asking
Not
for so
only
little?
two, but including both. You're doing both now, right?
Yeah.
City administrator / treasurer.
You know, and
What you're asking for is a 6% increase
Yep.
in taking on that additional. So I thought this was
Yeah.
going to wait till February to discuss this, but now we're doing it now?
Can I just ask a question on that?
Sure.
You know, in the original motion, it stated that, made by David Nevin, seconded by Gary Hecox, to appoint Mike Lyonese as a full-time city administrator treasurer with a performance review to be completed in February 28, to adjust wage and to compensate Mr. Lyonese retroactively to 7/10. Once the Springstead job classification and compensation study is received, and to use Dan Vogt as consultant as if needed. And so what is, so if this is clear, in our responsibilities and role, why are we moving this ahead? Why are we moving this up, I guess?
Well, we're not moving it ahead. What we have is a difference of opinion between when that adjustment should be made. You know, I mean, we're going on 18 weeks. I mean, I think 18 weeks is long enough for you to decide this.
So that's what the difference is, though. It was going to be
Yeah.
February, and now you'd like to accelerate that.
Right.
No, it never was, in my opinion, it never was February.
Well, stated, I mean.
But that's what was
That's what the
written.
motion states.
Well, the motion says a performance review to be completed in February. I already have a performance review coming up in February anyways. It's just who's going to do it.
Who do you think should do it?
I mean, I'm kind of chuckling at this because
I
we
mean,
talked
this
about
would be a
that.
first for the city of
Right.
Cross Lake.
Hence my earlier discussion,
Correct.
all right?
No, there's no disagreement with that.
Right.
Okay, so if I were
Yeah.
to comment on that, I kind of think that with your additional stuff is, I don't know, 6% enough? I mean, is that fair?
Well,
Let's talk about that a
Well,
little bit.
Right.
because-
here's the deal. Here's the deal. I give you my 2 cents worth, and he probably won't work with me after I say some of this stuff. We have a study going, all right? It's not done. You have to have things that are objective when you make these decisions. You can't just pluck them out of your back pocket. You can't take bits of data from here, bits of data from there, put them on. You know, you can make numbers look whatever you want to make it look like. So you have to be consistent with everybody. Mike has looked at the Springstead study, he's looked at the league data, he's made a recommendation for himself. You know, I think we'd probably all do that. But I think it's up to us to make sure that the process that he's following is right, because we're not going to be doing this bits and pieces, not using the Springstead study for everybody that has a job here. They're either going to use the study or they're not. And so we have to believe in the study or not believe in it. You can't be willy-nilly doing this thing. And I think we need to do an evaluation for Mike on his performance, and Gary knows about how these things go. And part of that evaluation, I know, should include input from everybody on the council as far as direction on what we would want him to do in the following year. He hasn't had any of that, as far as I know, from the council since I've been around. And that's doing him a disservice. There's nothing to measure Mike's performance on right now, other than what we think. We can say the things I can tell you he's a master at the numbers, which he is. But beyond that, we haven't told him what to do, so we're doing him a disservice. So as hard it is for me to say this, I think we need to wait until February. He needs to get a job description written. We need to get performance appraisal sheets put together, and he can do that. He can get those disseminated to us. We each write them out. You know, we fill out the review form. We give them to Patty, and then we talk about his salary increase, and then Patty gives Mike the review.
Okay, before
there
you
has-
make that a motion, can I just kind of maybe counter that? Or
Yeah,
give you
yeah,
my
I'm
opinion of it?
throwing out ideas. This is what we need to do.
My idea, and I don't know, I've never done this, and I've
Right,
never
yeah.
evaluated anybody, and I've never done that, but to me, I think 6% is a real fair increase for the added duties. Now, what his duties are, need to be determined. But I would go as far as making a motion, and I'm going to do this just to word it, that to go ahead and give him the 6% until the Springstead study is done and the February evaluation is done.
Ooh, but what about if it came back
It's a foolish
less?
thing to do, because
Just-
how do you
I did that
take the money back
fictitiously.
if the thing is wrong?
Well,
He's
I
going to
think
get, you know, he's going to get a review and a salary
he's not-
increase.
It's taken an awful long time to reward him for the additional stuff that he's taken on for the last.
Right, right.
And so that's where I have a little
So
bit of a
how does
thought.
this look for all of the other employees that work for him?
Gary, do you have anything? I mean, I've never done it before, so I don't know.
I think it goes back to our original conversation also, is that we do not have a plan in place that we can logically make and realistically and thoughtfully make a really good decision. And it's like added responsibilities. Absolutely. If somebody were to ask me what I thought Mike's responsibilities, they would probably be a lot different what he thinks his responsibilities are. And so it goes back to not having a process in place. To me, that's consistent. And I think it would be very difficult to approve a 6% raise for Mike now, and then all of a sudden say, oh, I guess you weren't worth that much. We're going to take it back in February.
The thing is, you're paying him less to do the job in which we were paying Dan Vogt. So I don't know where you're coming
See,
from.
that's the
We are.
trouble, is we're
We are.
asking him to do an awful lot for quite a while without any kind of
I think
compensation for it.
I think we're also making a lot of assumptions based on our earlier conversation is, not having a job description. What are Mike,
We
what
do
are
have a
Mike's-
job description. It's been in place since 2001.
For what?
City administrator. It exists, it's in place.
Why didn't I get that one in the email?
You asked for a current one. I
Right.
said the one we have is from 2001.
Isn't that the one you're using?
I would just assume that's what we're using.
So these are some of the issues, the one you need is not just the administrator, it's the administrator treasurer. So the whole thing is that we're very loose with what we're doing.
Well, we are, but I don't
Right.
know that we're going out on that far of a limb. Sorry, but I think for what Mike has
Well,
taken on.
what you're saying is we want to spend $8,500 on a company to do job evaluations and a salary survey, but not use that
No,
survey.
what I'm saying is that, is it his fault, because it's delayed, that he's not getting compensated for what we're asking him to do?
He's
That's the way I
he's
feel
the
about it.
administrator.
Yeah? So then you got to pay him.
Yeah.
Right, well, who gets the job description
Now, if I
done?
hired a foreman, and he
Right.
was a worker bee, and all of a sudden I raised him to a foreman, he's not gonna sit around for 6 months and wait for me to reward him for that. I mean, that's my simple world I live in. And 6%, I think, is a very fair number. I think it's a safe number for us. I don't think we're gonna get in trouble with it.
I always said it's not about the money. I said it's about the
For
process.
sure, you're not dependent
Yeah,
on the
I said
money.
it's about the process that we go through with our employees, evaluating them, making sure that the job descriptions fit their responsibilities. So again, I'm going to go back just to that very sticky point about having a consistent compensation plan in process that is,
I feel like you're delaying one of the employees and penalizing them for,
he's good.
Our lack of-
He's going to get paid. Whether, it's retro, it may be retroactive, but that's, it's not that he's not going
Cost
to
of
get the money.
goods are going up every day.
Right.
But
we agreed in June or July that it would be February. So had this process started
Well,
sooner,
and that's
then maybe
true.
we agreed.
true. But
So,
something
and I don't know,
apparently
I
has
mean,
changed or
can you wait until February? Do you have any issues with that?
It's been 18 weeks now.
I mean, it's going to be retro, but you kind of understand, I hope.
No, I
that
understand
We're trying to
that.
do a review, and we're trying to do it right.
Right.
And
No, I
and
appreciate
put some
that.
rhyme or reason to it so that the other employees are going to see this as a very objective process, not just you showed up and you asked for an increase and we passed it right to you, and they wonder, well, why can't I have the same? I mean, employees' feelings are going to be hurt.
Well,
And
I
you're
don't-
kind of the leader of the city here.
I don't think that's going to hurt anyone's
You know?
feelings, Dave. What I'm asking for, I think, is fair. It's consistent with the Springstead study that we're looking at, and in all honesty, it might be low.
Right. But it's up to us to determine that, and we need help from the study to be able to make that determination. That's all I'm saying. It isn't up to us to make this on gut feeling up here. It isn't. And we manage the city finances.
I personally think Dave's been doing a good job, and I would,
I haven't said that he hasn't been doing a good job. I'm just
I
saying.
think for what
we
he
need
has
a-
taken
We need to
on-
follow a process.
I think for what he has taken on, we could reward him temporarily until we figure it out. I don't know that, I don't know. Are we ready for a motion?
It probably
You
doesn't
want-
make any difference, because it's going to be 2 to 2, and it's going to get put off for another month.
I know.
And then we'll pay them 10%.
I still make a motion that we give them the 6% until February when we do a final. So we'll just do that and let it die.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments?
Can I just ask one question that's,
Yeah.
you would know the answer, Mike. When you get paid in 2018, and it's deferred, it's from 2017, the income tax consequence?
I'm a cash basis taxpayer right now, so that adjustment would fall into my 2018 tax.
What potentially could pump you into a bigger bracket or something?
It has yeah.
I'm just raising the issue, yeah.
And that was in the back of my mind. It is a bracket switch, as it is would be for a lot of people.
I mean, normally it's not that relevant because it's a couple percent, but depending on what the number is, I mean, I'm just, I don't want to complicate this further, I'm just raising the issue.
No, I see you
Right,
smiling
right,
over there, and
yeah.
you were thinking taxes, and I'm already there. So,
I figured that was in your brain, but I just wondered out loud. I'm not trying to say that drives the decision, I'm just asking, I didn't know the answer to that, honestly.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and we have a second. Is there any further discussion or comments? Shar, do you want to do a roll call vote on this?
I'll start with you, Patty.
No. And I'm going to qualify that by saying it's not about the money, it's about the process.
Dave?
No.
Yes.
Oh, no.
They
No.
cancel each other out.
No. And being on the Personnel Committee, it's the process, so.
2 to 2, motion fails.
Just bring it up next month.
Well, I don't know that I want to wait that long, because the government moves slow, and I don't want him to,
Right. And
We gotta
I
get
would
this
suggest that
process
yes, that we call a Personnel Committee meeting as soon as possible, and that we start laying out our plans for putting together a compensation plan.
How many non-union employees are we talking about with, not your deal, but the previous one?
5.
I was just maybe kind of suggesting with the comment that instead of February, maybe end of December would be a lot better timing. It's still, that's all I'm getting at. That'd make a big difference from a tax perspective for Mike.
right. And I'm okay with that, as long as we get that study
Gotta get
in
it
and get
done,
it
but-
done. Get it
Yeah.
done so that we're using the same
Are
thing
you
for
able to
everybody.
do that, Mike? I mean, are you able to move that study along?
Do you think so?
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean,
Not with what I've seen with working with this group. Not this group, but the Springstead people. it's very difficult to get responses. They're very
so that-
lightly staffed, so we're probably more realistically talking April or May of next year.
Regardless of what happens next month, let's revisit this again.
Okay, we can do that. All
Put it
right,
on-
let's
put it
move
on
on
the-
then.
Yeah,
What did you say, Gary?
we'll put it on the meeting for next month.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. Brad, could you put item G4 on the overhead? Yeah, and I'm going to go, this is our proposed tax rate, and let's go way over to the far right corner. There we go, perfect. The number in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, that's 24.494%. While I'm not being evaluated on this, I just want you to know how close I came.
Right.
Last
And I just
March-
have to add that this is kind of a little humor here, because this was, when Mike started out with this, he, has to kind of take his best guess. And so I said on how close he came was going to be part of this evaluation. And he
So,
came very close.
So anyways, what I did is I took some information working with the county, and we took an educated guess at the percent increase in market value between years. We took a guess at how much would be abated, how much would be tax increment, how much would be market value referendum, all those different things. And if you go back to your council packets, going back to July and August, you'll see in there a calculation of estimated tax rate, and my estimate was 29.545. So if you round this, it's spot on. That's
So
pretty
it's
good.
29,494 is what you had. I thought you
This is
said 24
29,
before.
this is 29,494, so that's 2 years in a row I was almost spot on.
Excellent.
So I just wanted you to know that.
Is this 5%,
That's at 7.
7% levy?
This is our preliminary levy.
That we did in September?
Yep.
Okay.
This is our preliminary levy. This is what will go out on the tax statements to Cross Lake property owners, and my name's on everyone's tax statements, so because they're in Cross Lake, I'll get the first phone call. The county will get the second phone call, and the school district will get the third one, and all three of those will be different conversations, I guarantee you. So I think that's pretty good. That's just for information. I have two other items on my report. The number 5 on here is you have in your council packet a letter dated November 2nd from Clifton Larson Allen, and it's about a 9-page letter. It's your typical engagement letter that says, we're going to do your audit. Here's our proposal to do it, and this is how much it will cost. I'm happy to say it's about on page 7 or 8 is the fee. The fee hasn't changed. In fact, the fee's actually gone down since we changed how we get ready for the audit. And that's a big kudos to Shar for helping us get ready for the audit and helping keep the audit fee down. They're looking at a $25,000 fee plus or minus expenses, and if we can get this approved at this meeting, we'll get on their audit calendar and get things rolling, which is usually that last week in February. So, any questions on that or the process?
Oh, you need a motion? Oh,
Need a motion
I'll
to
make a motion,
approve
we
the audit.
approve it.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, and while I'm talking about this one, I'm just going to pass this over to Brad and have him put that up. I didn't see there was a report for Public Works, so I'm going to make one up. Everyone knows there's a bridge going on.
Oh,
And so, if you remember, the bridge started about the first week in October, and if you can zoom in on Ted's face, if you could. Every day when Ted comes in, I say, "Ted, how's our bridge?" And he looks at his shoes like, "Oh, it's cold today," or "You ought to see the size of the piece of equipment they brought out now." And so Ted came in this afternoon and said, "I got to show you the bridge." So I went out there and we drove across it, and we came back, and I said, "Okay, stop." And before Ted could escape my camera, I took a picture, but I did ask him to do the happy dance. And this is all I'm going to get, is a smile from Ted, so.
Nice job, Ted.
So, nice job, Ted. They were taking down the temporary road today, started taking it down, so probably tomorrow, people will be driving on it. They're driving over it tonight. They're driving over it right now. So, thank you, Ted. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
Thank you, Mike. Now we'll move on to our commission reports, Park and Library, Park and Recreation Library. Mr. Henke.
Good evening. I'll speed
Good evening.
through some items here. Asking community members to hold off on their library book donations until spring. We just don't have the storage at this time. We've got a lot of books already ready for next year's sale. So if folks can wait until March of 2018, that would be great. That gives us a better opportunity to get our books organized for our first sale that will happen in April. April 6th, that actually is the first Friday of the month. A community center schedule for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend will be closed on Thursday, open regular hours on Friday. And later on in my agenda, Donna won't be having her usual yoga class Friday, November 24th, so I won't have to cover that again. So I just wanted to let the public know of our hours there. We have a new Zumba class at the community center. It happens Tuesdays 5:30 to 6:30. Denise Thompson is our instructor. The Park Commission did approve the payment proposal made by instructor Denise Thompson. It's with Denise getting 60% of the receipted revenues for the Zumba class, and the Park Department will receive 40% of the revenue. A motion to accept this payment proposal is being recommended by the Commission and the Park Department staff. So I get a motion to approve that or answer any questions you might have on that.
Can we have a motion on the
I'll
floor?
make a motion to approve
Okay,
that.
first by David, second?
I'll second it.
Gary Heacock, second. Any further discussion or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Community garden applications are ready for 2018. You can pick those up at the community center if you've got if you had a plot this year. We've got 20-some people on our waiting list, so if you're interested in getting a garden plot in the future, I would suggest getting on the list as soon as possible. AAA senior driving class, we have another refresher class Thursday, November 16th from 10 to 2. We've got a Learn to Play Pickleball program that we're starting on Mondays, starting November 27th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. If you want to learn how to play pickleball. So we've got a bunch of classes, 11:27, 12:04, 12:11, and 12:18. So we'll have instructors there. It's totally free to get going, and we're trying to grow that program and try to get over that 100-member mark for next year. Crimes Against Seniors, a special program that the Cross Lake Police Department is putting on at the community center here on Monday, December 11th at 11:30 a.m. It'll be right after our senior meal program, so for those folks that want to enjoy a meal that day, just need to give us a call to make your reservation by noon on Friday, December 8th. Officer Eric Swanson will be conducting the program, so I'd like to thank Chief Eric Lee and Officer Eric Swanson on making that program possible and talking about the common scams that these criminals are using against seniors these days. So it should be a good program. Earlier, there was a thank you provided to Chief Eric Lee and his staff. I just want to reiterate how professional they were. Diffused kind of a contentious situation in the gym, and did it very professionally and did an excellent job. So thank you so much for his staff and the county staff and the State Patrol for all helping us during that program. Also like to thank the volunteers from the Whitefish area property owners also who helped us with setup and takedown for the event, setting up tables and chairs and stuff like that. So it was a huge meeting for just a staff of a couple people to be able to set up for, and those folks helped out a lot. One correction I wanted to point out, there was an article in the paper, I'm not sure which paper, Jane just said to make sure to announce this tonight, about a blood drive coming up. It's supposed to be, according to the paper, Wednesday, November 15th at the community center. There is no blood drive at the community center, so if you show up, you'll be disappointed. We might have candy left over from Halloween, but there'll be no blood given that day. We do not have a program that day. The correct date and time is November 30th from 1 to 6 p.m., and that'll take place as usual at the Cross Lake Lutheran Church in town. So you can contact the Red Cross if you want to make an appointment. And that is my staff report for the night. I've got another short report here to talk about, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those now. Otherwise, we'd move on to the appraisal report we have for the Heigl property. No questions?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. So the council approved us to go ahead and get an appraisal done on the Heigl property here quite a few months ago. And that is it's in your packets tonight. It's a pretty big packet, 69 pages, very thorough report, done by Bill Ludina out of Baxter, has done some work for the city and other local cities. We also had another estimate from one other appraiser in the area that does these types of appraisals. And so at this point, the Park Commission recommended going ahead with the appraisal report and the condemnation proceedings to get our access road into South Bay Park. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brad Person, our city attorney, to answer any questions and to talk about some options that you have.
Well, just back to this one's also been on the agenda for a long time, and so it's kind of the chicken or the egg thing. You wanted to know more kind of what the costs were to know whether you're going to do this. So this is one more step in figuring out costs. So on the page 2 there, it tells you the cost of the acquisition. So the question to the council is, do you want to keep moving or not? If so, this is the next step. That cost, is probably from past experience, you know by now that it'll be that number or higher. It won't be lower than that number. And we probably would start with just a letter requesting an easement, and if that doesn't go anywhere, we would start, condemnation procedure.
I think, once again, here I am, John, looking for the bigger picture of what's going to happen, what are we going to do? I've stated multiple times, but how are we going to get the other property owners to chip into it, or are we going to pay for everything, or I'm talking about the surplus, half-acre chunks to them.
I should clarify that. This appraisal, by the way, does include more than just the minimum we need to build a road. The road kind of creates some remnant parcels that really don't have any value for them, so the suggestion is just the city should just acquire it all. So we're actually buying quite a bit more than we need for the road.
So we're buying from the old road back to where
But then we can then reconvey it and reconfigure lots and not necessarily make money back maybe, but at least probably recoup a lot of the cost of the project by not selling maybe, I guess you'd word it that way, but selling the land.
able to sell?
Well, what we can do is we can sign assessment agreements whereby some of the survey, legal, engineering costs to do this project, they would agree to pay for in exchange for getting a larger yard, basically. And now the road's going to be farther from their lake house, so there's more privacy. There's a fair amount of benefit to the lake lots. But again, that still doesn't change I don't know if that doesn't address what you're going to do in the city park property. That's another big discussion. But this helps you maybe hopefully visualize kind of how this road project would happen. This would allow us to, my hunch would be pretty easily deal with all the lake owners because we have land. We're going to make all the yards bigger. Should be pretty good carrot.
It's probably 40% of the road, though. The 60% additional is the other chunk, right?
Yeah, it's maybe a good fraction, sure.
Yeah.
And you've talked about this, remember the discussion we had on the road? Why do we have to pave it?
Right.
Which
all
was
part of the big package
which is
that we-
a lot of money, and I don't know why we'd have to pave it right off the bat. But the other property owners that John's been dealing with aren't going to wait forever, and you've been working on this project for
18 years.
18 years, so it's time to quit working on it or start Phase 2, and I know you don't have, you probably have some ideas in your head as far as what we do there, but that's like another chapter in the book here. Why waste time on it if you don't have the property? So,
Yeah, we've got a variety of plans. The plans date back to the 70s, actually, on this park. It started in 1974, so I should have brought those tonight. We found one up at City Hall that I have in my office right now, and it kind of lays out what they wanted to do back then. There's been various plans through the years, 2 comprehensive plans that had drawings of the park. You know, we're looking at a day use area. It's not going to be open at night. It's going to be a locked area, be open, say, 9 to 9 at night or whatever the council deems necessary. It'll be a place where people can come and get access to the water. You know, we're not talking about a boat access, but we're just talking about a public beach, picnic shelter, you know, small little tot lot eventually, but it's going to be built in phases, and hopefully we can rent out some of the areas for family reunions and get-togethers and weddings, and maybe get the businesses involved with doing some catering, so our local businesses will get a few more
Right, that's the big
business
picture, but I
and all
mean,
that
to get
stuff.
this thing off the ground, Phase 1, and I think there's going to be 5 phases to it, or so, I mean,
Yeah.
I could kind of foresee.
Phase 1 is get the road.
Is the road, right.
We gotta get the land to get the
Okay,
road
but
into
do
the
we,
property.
again, do we have to get the road blacktopped with the
No.
bike path?
No,
and-
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I think we get the road that we need, and then the council can proceed as they see fit. And, you know, whether you assess, you know, part of that cost, if you're gonna pave that road down there, that's a decision that you'll have to have. Part of that road has never been paved down there. The part from the Schwartz property all the way back to the park, and the people that live west of the Corps of Engineer property have had a gravel road for the entire existence of all those cabins down there. There's probably 6 to 10 cabins down there that have never had a paved road. There is 4 or 5 cabins that have always had a paved road, and now they won't have a paved road anymore because that road is getting shifted to the south. So that's another decision that the council will have to make, but the biggest thing is getting the land that we need to put the road in, put a Class 5 road in there. We can work with the county on maintaining that road if you want to do that. You know, we can grade it with their equipment and pay the county a little bit to go out there and maintain it, and go from there. That would be the cheapest route to go.
But to...
And go.
You want to think ahead and try to think it through, but again, tonight's action item would be simply acquire the right-of-way. You might not build a road for 10 years, or when you build it, it might be half tar, half... That's not tonight's decision. Although, it's obviously a waste of money to spend 40 grand on road acquisition if you're never going to build it.
Right.
So, I mean, you want to think ahead, but that's not, design's not tonight's meeting.
I mean, you got to remember that half of the land that we need is being gifted to the city, and that, a great portion of that land is getting sold next year. So they need to get this deal done so they can subdivide that property and sell it off. If it doesn't get done, they'll subdivide the property, we'll lose the easement that we would have had, the free property that we would have, and now you're looking at paying more money to condemn property that's someone else's now instead of land that was originally going to be gifted to the city. So that has some bearing on what you want to do too. It can save us some money going that route. So that's why there's some urgency to get this done.
So we don't have a motion on the floor yet, so, hold your questions, we'll get a motion on the floor and a second, and then we'll continue the discussion. So is there a motion on the floor to continue with the condemnation of this particular property?
I think the request is, yeah, do you want to direct staff to acquire it? It might, hopefully it'll be by negotiated easement, but if not, we would
Okay.
start the condemnation. I guess would be
Okay.
kind of what we're asking for.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion. Gary, do you have any comments on that? What are your thoughts?
I have a few comments on it.
Okay.
I think we're taking the city out in another direction and making it longer. The other thing is, you're not going to have weddings down there unless you have a well and toilets and things like that. So you're talking another $500,000 or more. And I don't know, you can put a road down there, but if it's a road to nowhere,
Well,
there's
Yeah.
nothing in the budget that I can see that we can spend $500,000 down there.
That,
And
to
it's
me,
not
that
gonna
all
make
comes,
any
that's
money.
just going to slowly come over time.
Right,
Like
right.
Brad said, it may not start for 10 years, or we might decide to do a little bit every year in this
Right,
planning
it's
process.
going to be more staff.
And this is,
You know,
and
you
this
got-
Right.
is the first,
gonna be
this is
over.
the
We're
first.
not going to build a road. We're
this is
just going to
the
get the
first-
land.
Well,
This is the-
well, that's a decision that we can make later, but his suggestion in a month ago was, why can't we just put a Class 5 road in there? We can.
As long as it satisfies the people that are going to give the
Yes,
land.
right,
I mean,
right.
that's, to me,
Hopefully they'll
is a gray
understand.
area. I don't know if that's going
Yeah.
to satisfy them or not, but
And I know Brad has
we could set
expressed,
a budget of $100,000 to get a road roughed in back there with Class 5 on it.
nobody likes
That
to
would
go.
be something to
yeah.
talk about.
Yep.
So, you know, I mean, I guess, I don't know, John, personally, I kind of need you to say, that'll work. You know, we
Yeah,
can do that.
that'll work. We just need to get this first chunk of this property. We got a willing property owner on the other side of it, and we get that hurdle crossed.
Right. And we
That
don't
would
want to
be a-
lose,
that would
we
be a
don't want
huge
to lose
leap
that
for
gentleman.
us.
Yeah.
Mayor, may I ask a question to
Yeah,
John?
I'm sorry.
John, one question for you.
Yep.
I know that property we're trying to get to is lease property. We have a lease with the Corps. What's the term of that lease, and are there any restrictions on its
Yep.
use?
2036, and so we would be working with the Corps to develop the, proposal for the property, to develop, working with Corrine and her local staff, could give us local approval. The way I understand it, I don't mean to speak for Corrine, but that's the way our conversation has went, I think, is that she has some local control over what would happen down there. So, once we get the access, we would work and develop a plan and take it step by step and go from there, so.
Any other questions or comments for,
The only other comment I'll make is that if we put a park down there, you're going to have somebody to mow it, you're going to hire some more people.
5 years
all
down the
adds
road
up.
or something, that's the developing park. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I see it.
process of the development.
And then our police chief will need another person for sure.
We're adding jobs. What's wrong with that?
Two?
Two.
Yeah. We'll find Eric down there every afternoon.
First thing we'll do is put a gate at the end of the road.
All right.
Well, it-
I can see, getting the road access. But where the rest of these dollars, there better be a lot of grants or something, because there is not
Well,
going
there's
to
going to
be.
definitely have to be a plan.
all right. And that's what Brad is talking about tonight. The
That's
first
what-
thing is the
Get the
road
road.
First thing is,
process.
we
Right
should have
away.
had some kind of a plan laid out for what the park is going to be before we build a road.
Yeah, we have about 3 different plans, Gary, so that's already
Actually, yeah.
taken care of. We just don't know what the finalized plan, because
There
we
is
need
actually a
permission
roughed-in
from-
road and stuff there. You could go mow that, and all of a sudden, hey, this is cool, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, there is a,
We currently mow the park anyway, we've got trails down there, so the guys are already mowing it. They're already
Yeah.
taking equipment there, so that's nothing new. And, we're going through our comprehensive plan update. We're making decisions today that are gonna affect our city 30, 40, 50 years from now. And you've gotta start planning ahead. You can't start looking at what you're gonna do, just for tomorrow. You gotta look 5, 10, 15 years down the line. We might just get the road in, and that might be all we get done in the next 10 years, who knows?
Yeah.
But we got to get that road done right now. The future of this community depends on us getting that road into the park and going from there.
We got money for that, Mike? For that road?
We have cash. It has not been appropriated, so that
All
would
right.
be up to the
Yeah,
council.
Just one final comment, even if the park is a ways out, we might find, once we have the road right away and show a new alignment, you might have lake lot owners that are say, we'd love to give you 20, 30 grand each to build a road, we don't care about the park. That's not the city's incentive, ours is the park development, but we might find landowners willing to pay
Chip in.
a fair amount of money, we don't know until we ask, but we need the road first,
The other advantage you're going to have is you're going to have all those lots that aren't developed down there. Now there's actually some value in purchasing those lots that are down there. So which lowers the taxes for all the rest of us. Each new residence that comes in is more people spending money at our local businesses and paying property taxes. So it's another benefit that you need to look at.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good deal. We just
Okay,
gotta,
so are we ready to vote on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, great. All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Public forum. No action will be taken on any of the issues raised. If appropriate, the issues will be placed on the agenda of a future council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Each speaker is given a 3-minute time limit. Do we have anybody?
Mark Wessels, 13336 East Shore Road, here in Cross Lake. Just want to talk about the pay raise for Mr. Linus. If you actually read the motion that was passed unanimously in July, it says to do 3 things. We're going to review his job performance in July, comma. Second thing is we're going to adjust his wage and compensation retroactive to July once the Springstead job classification is in, comma, and, what was the last one? Used Envoy as a consultant. So if you're going to follow procedure, you already unanimously approved giving him his retroactive as soon as the Springfield report's in, and from what I understand, it's in.
no, I don't think it is, though,
It's not,
right?
it's
I thought you said you had it in, looked, once it's received.